Welcome back to this week's episode of Unlocked, and today is a really special episode. We've been trying to get this done for a while now, honestly, and life has just been crazy, but I have on Sharita Mathis. Welcome.
Hi.
And for those, you guys are going to be like, okay, who is this? She was actually in with my mom for how long?
8 months.
8 months. So she got to know my mom during that whole process. And now she has a book coming out, and it's called Letters to My Daughters from the Inside.
Yes.
And she sent me some of them, and I just started sobbing. I was like, oh my God. Like, until you've gone through it, you really don't know. So that is coming out
April 1st.
April 1st.
Yes.
April 1st. We're not sure when this is going to air, but you will be able to hopefully pre-order the book and then go and get it as soon as it comes out. But so you were in Lexington, Kentucky.
Yes.
Well, first off, okay, FMC Lexington,
Yes.
the camp. It's not necessarily a medical facility, is it?
It is attached to a medical facility. So the medical facility is in the main prison, which is the male's prison. Mm-hmm. So we're in this little tiny building. Looks like an old schoolhouse. That's why I always tell people, like, I'm in an old dorm.
Literally.
Yeah, it looks like an old school that's on the same campus as the men.
Okay.
So yeah, but there's no medical facility inside. There's a little clinic, but the medical part really is the men.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the biggest thing is like, hey, you're not getting, people love to say, oh, she's getting proper medical. No, that's not what it is. Yeah. So how long were you in?
I served exactly 12 months and 8 days. So I self-surrendered in August of 2022. I believe your mom came top of January 23.
Yep.
Yes.
Look at you. You got a good memory.
Yeah. I remember the day she came. I was standing in the window and I watched. She came in an SUV. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I saw the trucks because everybody, obviously, it was a talk around the campus and people were looking. I think she came around 11 noon, somewhere around there. I was in the TV room the computer room, and everybody started flocking over to the window, and we saw her, and I think, she obviously went over to report to R&D. So yeah.
Well, I think that's the scariest part about, like, because y'all have to report to the men's facility, right?
Correct. Yeah. You go in, I don't know if you remember, you probably remember just as well as you were there?
So I didn't. I went and dropped my dad off.
You dropped your dad off. Okay.
Yeah.
They reported the same day.
Yeah. They had to report the exact same
time.
day.
Okay.
So we had to divide and conquer.
So yeah, you actually parked at a tree, or I did, parked at this tree on the men's side, and you wait for an officer to tell you, they say, well, what's your name? You give them your name. You kind of wait, and you just kind of like sitting there until they come back and get you. And then I always say, like, it's a very sentimental walk. And when your mom's going to take that walk, she probably already took it when she came out for for her transfer, maybe. But you walk through this long gate and has real tall fence, barbed wired. Obviously, they don't want you.
It seemed like it was never going to end.
It's very long. And then you kind of, when you get through that first gate and it shuts behind you and it's like, boom, at that point, it's no turning back. It's you and you and you. It's you and you. And I remember walking through the gate. It closes. They buzz you, and then you get to another one. They have to open another door, and the officer, they ask you what's your name. You tell them, and then you go in and you start your journey.
And what was that first day like? Like, can you remember her walking in and just? I can only imagine that she was just.
The first time I saw your mom, I was sitting in the telephone line, and the telephone line is close to medical. And I saw her, she was moving quick. Your mom, she walks fast around that camp. And I remember sitting in the television, not television, I keep saying television.
Computer.
In the computer telephone line.
Telephone.
And I saw your mom coming up. I think she was going to go to medical. And she had her head down. She wasn't really talking to anybody. She smiled, but you could tell she was in deep thought.
Yeah.
She was thinking about getting to where she had to go. And a few people spoke to her, but she was by herself. And kind of just with herself. She was real quiet. It wasn't until later when she started playing cards because we stayed on the same, she was on the second floor at that time. She was down in the room. I think there was like 12 people or something in her room, but she would come up to the third floor and she would sit in the hallway with some ladies, and she was a little card shark.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. She was playing cards, and so she played cards with some girls I was friends with, and they said, oh, we got to introduce you to Julie, da 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 da. And so we spoke, but they were like deep into their game.
Yeah.
It wasn't until later when we started working together that we connected.
Okay. And then it seems like, I mean, I know she's had her breakdowns, but she got in there and she did it.
Oh yeah. I know like we probably started working together within her first 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
She hadn't been there long, but I'm going to say she was like, I'm not even going to think about this. Like, I'm just going to do what I got to do. Mm-hmm. She's worried about you all.
Yeah.
She loves you all. Yeah, you are her world.
She is. That's what I tell everybody. Like, there was never a time where I was like, where is mom? Is she going to be at school today? Is she going to she was always there. Mm-hmm. Always. And that seems like that's just her biggest thing, is just worried about her kids. Yeah. Like, forget about her. She can do what she needs to do. But like, her kids are her number one focus.
That definitely came across from the time that I met her. I remember the first time I went to her room, I think she was sharing a book that was one of her friends had sent in for her. Maybe you sent it, but one of the friends had written the book, and I went in and I saw the board, and she had all your pictures on there.
Yeah.
And she was like, "This is my baby. This is my." She was telling me who everybody was, and then from there, from working together, we just became close. I remember asking her. I said, "Tell me your story. Like, just tell me how." Like, from the beginning.
Yeah.
And she started telling me about the very first property that your dad and her had gotten, and they were sleeping on the floor. I think he did a lot of the work in the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she told me like this, the evolution and how they built.
They would wash dishes in the bathtub sink because they were redoing a kitchen or the bathtub. Yeah.
And then I think they had a relationship with someone at the bank, and they needed people to clean the houses, and then she started cleaning them.
Yeah, we cleaned those houses. That was like, as kids, like during the summer, or like, nope, we're gonna go do a trash out, and we're gonna the amount of when people like lose a home to foreclosure, they don't care what condition they leave it in.
Right.
So it was just, I saw some things I should have never seen. This is disgusting. It was awful, but we did it.
Yeah. She talked about how, she started from there, and then she went into, you were in the pageants.
Oh yeah.
And then
she went into all of it.
Oh yeah. She told me, I think honestly, I could be wrong because I don't know, but I think from what I gathered, and I believe she told me, I think I was like one of the first people that just asked her, like, tell me the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to know, like, just how did you get, not here in prison, just in your life, like where you are today. And so she was talking about, you'd won the pageant, and you all were in New York trying to do a fashion line. Mm-hmm. And from there, I guess the individual ended up being a showrunner.
Yes.
And then that's how you got the show. Yeah. And we used to talk a lot. And then there was
that's what you need, though. Mm-hmm. Like, when you're in there, you got to find people who you can have conversations with, and intellectual conversations. Yeah. And you have to, or else you'll go crazy.
You will. Yeah.
That is crazy.
She was, one day, I was talking to 2 girls. One, actually both of them were they had drug charges. And one of the girls was pretty much like, when I get out, I'm going back to selling drugs. This is what I'm gonna do, because this is the only life I've ever known, and it's the only thing that can make me this amount of money to live this certain lifestyle. Yeah. And so I'm like, no, there's got to be other things that you can do. You don't want to come back here. And it was like at the perfect moment, your mom walks in the room, and I'm like, Julie, tell her there's something else that she can tell her there's something else she could do. And so she was like, well, how much money were you making, doing what you were doing? So she told her, I think it was like, she's making like $30,000 a run or something. And your mom is like, well, you can do this and this. So she's, going through all the ideas, and she starts off with real estate. So we got into this real estate conversation because your mom had also taught a real estate class.
She told me.
She taught a real estate class, and she was telling me, and she was like, yeah, I mean, and she was talking about how your dad, he's the charismatic person, builds the relationships and all of that. And she often spoke about how you're just like, she's just like her daddy. And she told me, she said, you should look into it. Because at this point, I'm thinking, what am I going to do with my life whenever I leave here? Because I was a faculty member. I had a nice career. And she was like, you should look into it. You're smart. You can do it. When I got home, I had $12,000 left after everything had been dwindled off. And my neighbor was a real estate investor. And he saw me outside, and he was like, where you been? And I was like, I got into a little situation. I've been gone. He's like, I know I hadn't seen you. And I said, were you still doing the real estate investing? I was like, I learned about it. I was in prison with Julie Chrisley, and she told me this is what I need to do. I was out 10 days, and I flipped my first house because your mama told me to do it.
No way. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
Yes, and that is how I got myself back up after flipping that house with my neighbor. And and this is what's so crazy. He didn't know how much money I had, Savannah. He came to me, he said, you can do this house. I said, how much is it going to cost? Guess how much it was?
What?
$12,000. It was my last. And I said, oh my God. I was sitting there departing with like, this is all I got. I've been gone. I lost everything. And I gave it to him. And we flipped the house.
And what did you end up making?
I think total was like 60 grand.
Oh my gosh.
That's how I boosted myself back.
That is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's one other girl, who we were incarcerated with. She's doing it too.
Holy cow.
Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, it was your mom. I heard about it before, and my neighbor had done it, but it was her like going through, telling me the story, and like me just hearing her talk about
that, like, it's possible.
Yeah.
If you're running a business, you know that every time you miss a call, you're leaving money on the table when every customer conversation matters. I know for me with real estate and Good Girl RX, you cannot miss a phone call, and you have to give customers the experience that they deserve. That's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system that streamlines and scales your customer communications. It works through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying 2 phones or using a landline. And yes, landlines still exist. With Open Phone, your team can share one number and collaborate on customer calls and texts like a shared inbox. That way, any teammate can pick up right where the last person left off. Keep response times faster than ever. Plus, with AI-powered call transcripts and summaries, you'll be able to automate follow-ups, ensuring you'll never miss a customer interaction again. Open Phone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months on openphone.com/Savannah. That's openphone.com/Savannah. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Again, they're offering my listeners 20% off. So go to openphone, openphone.com/Savannah.
So I'm thinking about parts of the conversation that we were talking about. When we were talking to the girls, and she was like, how much did you make? And she was like, 30,000. Your mom was like, that ain't no money. I was like, damn. I was like, God. So tell me, how much we thinking over here, Julie? I was like, and your mom was like, let me break this down.
Yeah. Well, and you saw from just your first flip that, like,
I was like, oh, okay.
That you can do it.
I was like, oh yeah.
I was
like, it's a lot of work, but once I was like, okay.
And so also too, I can only imagine my mother when they're like having conversations about drugs. Like,
Your mom was like, are they crazy? Your mommy is looking at me. No, your mommy's like, these bitches crazy. She be looking. She be like, what's wrong with them? She be like, there's some crazy. I was like, Julie, just let them have it. Let them have it.
Well, that's it, because there are, the majority in there are
It's
drug.
a lot of drug. It's a lot of, and I think too, that was another, because you always have like this, this whole, you got a white collar crime.
Yeah.
It's not a versus thing.
No.
But it definitely is always like you're in here on you're a white collar crime. And normally those sentences are a little bit lighter. But your mom's sentences and your dad's sentence, this is like a drug. This is what you normally see, what we call football numbers. When they start getting these double digits. Yeah. They got Jersey level sentences.
Yeah.
And so.
Which is that's a whole other thing in itself. Like, you see people in there who are like repeat offenders, who are like, what do they call, like, when you're repeating the feds? Like career criminals, literally is what they call them, and they get less time. And it's like, make it make sense.
Yeah. And so your mom and I think because we had a commonality being that
because your charge was
it was
a conspiracy, white collar. Yeah.
And so there was that connection there too, because it was, okay, let's talk about, and then when you start looking at individuals who are in there that have crimes that have millions of dollars of restitution attached to it, we connect on this too.
Yeah.
And so.
Do you have restitution?
2 million. 2 million.
And how did they come up with that number?
So my charge again is conspiracy to commit Medicaid fraud. Conspiracy. So
I hate a conspiracy charge. That shouldn't even.
I hate conspiracy charges. I hate conspiracy. Like, as soon as someone tells me they got a conspiracy charge, I'm just like, gonna report.
Yeah.
That's what. Because it doesn't take much to get a conviction on a conspiracy charge. Yeah. Conspiracy charge can be we're having a conversation. I remember my attorney gave me the analogy. He said, let's say the two of us are sitting together and we talk about, we have one of us has the idea to rob a bank, and you're like, oh yeah, that's okay, let's talk about it. And you're talking about it. And you decide midways, I'm not going to go through with it, and the other person goes on and robs the bank because you didn't whistleblow, because you didn't tell it, and you didn't which is not a formal withdrawal. You didn't formally withdraw. You can get charged with a conspiracy, and it doesn't require any abundance of evidence. Necessarily. No. Same thing with some of the, cooperation with two people.
Yeah.
Can say that you, on a drug charge, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know all the legal eagles out there going to bash me if I don't get this right. Two people saying that you sold ghost drugs, you're gone.
Yeah.
So it doesn't require a lot to get a conspiracy charge, get a conviction on a conspiracy charge.
That's crazy. There's like this, it's not this.
Well, it's not necessarily like a divide, but there is always a conversation. Like, you'll hear comments. I heard comments like, oh, it's a white collar. You all don't get as much, because a lot of the drug charges have mandatory minimums. And so a lot of the individuals who are there on drug charges, they have those 10-year mandatory minimum sentences or some, heftier time. And so a lot of times, people would just say, I should have just stole some money. I would already be out. There's always whatever.
So y'all connected because, like I said, the majority are drug charges that are in there. And a lot of these, Mom would tell me some stories. Like, there was one woman that like had all these tattoos, whatever, and it like she had kids, and she wasn't excited to get out for the kids. It was to go get more tattoos or to go do this or to go, and mom's like I just don't connect with that.
Yes.
She's like, every single day is a step closer to me getting home to my kids. And you had 4 daughters.
Yes.
And how old were they when you went in?
So my youngest was 9, and then the other girls were in their 20s. So I think you and my oldest are close to the same age. Yeah. So I was leaving a little one, similar to your situation, under the care of my mother And my father, who at the time, he was ill. He was suffering from dementia.
Let me see if this is mom. It may be.
Be charged for this call. This call is from Julie.
That's awesome.
Recorded and subject
Oh
to
my
monitoring at any time. You may begin speaking now.
Hello.
Hey, honey.
Hey, you okay?
Yeah, what you doing?
Julie Chrisley.
Who is that?
Sharita.
Oh my God!
She's doing my podcast.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, this makes me so happy.
Yeah, so you called and I looked down and I was like, wait, it may be mom.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. I love it.
Also, she flipped a house.
She did?
10 days after she got out.
That makes me so happy.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I love it.
Yep.
Love it. All right,
All right.
I love you.
Love you.
And I'll call you tomorrow.
All right, love you.
Bye.
What are the chances of that?
I know, right?
What are the chances? She's almost out of minutes, so
She's almost out of minutes.
because they did that.
They changed,
Yeah,
right?
which is-
She's at 300 now.
Yeah, 300 to disperse amongst all your kids, your
What's that,
parents.
10. I was gonna say it's
110.
less than
Yeah,
that, yeah.
1 10-minute phone call a day.
And you can't buy any more minutes. Because when I was there, they were still, with the COVID, the CARES Act was still in place, so we were getting the 510 for free.
Yeah.
So the 300, are they free or are they paying for them?
I think they're free if you're programming FSA. If you're FSA eligible, then you get the 300. But you can't buy any more, which is crazy.
No, that's right.
Like crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that was wild. This episode of Unlocked is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game, shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can be a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help you find options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states. So when you went in, your youngest was 9.
Yes.
And how did that... of your kids, would you say she was impacted the most?
I didn't tell her. I was going. I told her I was working out of town. I couldn't tell her. I just could not bring myself to tell her.
And
I didn't tell her till I came back.
So she didn't know?
She thought I was working. I would do my video visits, and I think she eventually said that one of her friends told her. And that was my biggest fear. I was like, okay, she's 9. I just didn't know. I just didn't know how to. Day after day, I just couldn't work myself up to say it.
I have said that, like, before mom and dad left, they didn't touch any of the kids' stuff. They didn't, like, because the kids moved in with me.
Okay.
And once they left, and like part of me is like, why would you not have helped me move them over to my house and get them settled before you left? And like, but instead when they left, like I had to do all that, But then on the flip side, I'm like, I could not imagine as a parent looking at your child and like moving them to another home. And I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. No. And then also because I was leaving and her dad had not gotten sentenced yet. Because my co-defendant, like your mom, is my ex. Well, it's not my ex-husband, but this is a previous relationship. That my youngest daughter's dad, he was waiting to be sentenced. So he didn't get sentenced until after I did. Till after I had gotten already, I was already in Kentucky.
And what did he get sentenced to?
13 years.
And did you get sentenced or did you enter into a deal?
I did a plea.
Yeah. Because
It was long. It had already been, the federal government or the investigators came to me in the mall, like the week before the whole world shut down for COVID. So during the middle of all the COVID chaos, I was going through the investigation. I had just found out. So that kept delaying everything because the courts were closed and so on and so forth. So it drug for like, I think 2 years from the time that I found out I was under investigation until I was actually sentenced was 2 years. So it was just a long,
and in the midst of an already depressing time, you had that on top of it.
Yes, yeah.
And so your older kids,
yes.
Did your husband, or not your husband, but did your ex go in while you were in?
Yes, so I went in August and then he reported in January. So it wasn't staggered on purpose. It just happened because I actually wasn't supposed to go for sentencing until like June or July. And then one day my attorney called and was like, yeah, you're on the docket for May. And I was like, wait a minute, that's 2 months earlier. And he was like, yeah, I just got a call. You're going in. I was like, you can't push it back. He was like, I don't want to push it back. Let's just go ahead because at that point we'd already pushed it back like twice.
Yeah.
So when I went in May 22nd, May 25th, 2022, and that's when I got sentenced to 22 months. And then they wanted me to report early, but my daughter's birthday was coming up, and we asked them, could I wait until after her birthday? And they told me they wouldn't make me report until after her birthday, which was July 13th. But they didn't give me a set date. They just said you won't have to report before then. I didn't find out I was leaving and where I was going to the day before I left.
What?
So I found out on a Monday, and I was in Kentucky on Tuesday. But, I always say I wish from the day that I found out about the investigation, I wish it would have just took me in.
That's exactly what Mom said.
Yeah. She'd be home by now, right? It would be over.
Because she said it's no quality of life.
No.
Like, it is absolutely no quality of life whatsoever. And especially, too, like, even the judge in our case, they got sentenced. It was right before Thanksgiving. So I remember we didn't plan anything for Thanksgiving because everyone had told us, like, chances are they're going to take them.
So they thought they were going to get taken after the sentence.
Yeah, from the courtroom. And because I'll never forget going in, they handed over all their personal belongings. Like our lawyer was like, just hand over everything because chances are you're going to leave. And
not till halfway through that day, though.
Yeah.
Not when you got there. You didn't.
No.
Oh, good. It was we broke for lunch.
Yeah, it was when we broke for lunch. You're right. Yeah, that was, yeah.
So this is because your mom went to trial. Because I remember she and I having a conversation why why they decided to go to the trial. I was like, Julie, you didn't just take a plea, because.
But what was crazy though is even their plea deals
were high.
And it's like, what? I think her plea was 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, and Dad's was maybe 10, I think. So, or so it was something of that nature. Or no, Dad was 15. Dad's was 15 and hers was 5. What kind of plea is that? Right. But at the sentencing, the judge, because it was a few days before Thanksgiving, and once she sentenced them, I just remember seeing their faces too. I was like, I will never forget just watching tears just roll down their face. And the judge allowed them to report January 16th, I think it was. So they were sentenced in November. They didn't report till January. And Mom's like, it's a double-edged sword, like you're grateful for the holidays that you do get to spend, but every single day it's like checking off a calendar of when you have to report. So she says the same thing of like, I just wish I would have gone.
Yeah. It's worse to me. The waiting and anticipation and not knowing is worse than being in prison. That is the prison.
Yeah.
Because you're unsure. You don't know. Like I remember those 2 years, similar to your mom, like always thinking every time my kids would have a birthday, am I going to be here for the next birthday? Where am I going to be the next? Is this my last birthday with them for a while? How long? Like you don't know. So you're just always living in a high state of anxiety and depression, and just it is the worst. Like even now when I'm speaking to a lot of women who contact me, because I get a lot of people contacting me from my TikTok videos, and I always tell them like, I know you probably don't want to hear this, but it is, if they're getting ready to be sentenced, it's almost over. Like, I remember walking out of the court after I got sentenced, and it literally felt like the sun was shining. Like, it was like,
yeah, because you knew.
Now I know. Now I can deal with it. Now it's go time. Let me try to get my things in order. I have this little bit of time. I don't know exactly what day. I have a general idea. I got about 2 months something. That was May. I knew I was going to be out until my daughter's birthday, which was like 45 to 60 days later. Let me try to get my things in order. I know how much time roundabout. The First Step Act had just started being implemented, so I knew that was there, and this was the beginning. And I heard they still having issues. I can't believe it.
It's crazy. Literally, there are all these men and women that are still sitting in prison 6 months to a year longer than they ever should. Like, they should have been home 6 months to a year ago, and it's costing taxpayers upwards of $1 billion.
It's crazy, and especially the camp people. Like, you might as well be home.
Exactly.
You might as well just do that time in the house.
People don't realize, because if you wanted to, you could have walked out the door of that camp and no one was stopping you.
No.
Now, the marshals would be after you at some point, but like, they're not going to chase after you. You can literally walk out the front door.
There were stories about people. I wasn't there when this happened, but they were talking about, there was where we were located in the field right across. There used to be like they have a carnival that comes every year.
Yep.
And I remember them telling a story about some girls one time had left and gone to that carnival.
Like, what?
And I think, as long as you come back within 2 hours or something, you don't get an escape charge. But to your point, you're free. You're in the free public. There's nothing going to stop you from going out.
So if that's happening, again, why aren't you serving your time at home? Why aren't you contributing to society? Why
paying your restitution or whatever it is?
Exactly.
And then you have, I feel like that's another, when you do have a white collar crime, a lot of times people often talk about, well, the drug crimes get longer prison sentences, but a restitution is a sentence too.
It is.
Because once I've done my time, now I have to come out and then continue.
And so I remember that's what we were talking about, was the restitution side of things, of how they actually calculated that number.
Yeah. So they did ours based on the amount of billing that was submitted and the percentage of that billing that they thought was fraudulent.
That they thought.
Yeah.
So again, that's what's crazy, is you see all these restitution amounts and you're like, how did you come up with it? This was not money that was stolen. This was not, that's what's crazy to me.
Yeah. And on my case, when I look at some of my co-defendants and I look at my restitution is this amount, their restitution is this amount, theirs is this amount. None of our amounts are the same. So why is mine this, but theirs is this and this one is this? Like, how did you determine, which part of this gets,
that's
my responsibility versus theirs?
And that's what's crazy, is they don't have to give you a reason. They don't have to give you evidence. They don't have to. It's just what we say goes.
Which is, for me, why I was so nervous about going the route like your parents, going to trial.
Yeah.
Because I was like, at least I have the guideline. You have the guidelines, but, they can do an upward departure or down. They can go up or down on those guidelines. And so that's when, for me, the cost of it, the time, it had already been drug out. I wanted it to be over.
Yeah. Because now you're moving on with your life.
Yeah.
And so it's like you say with upward and downward departures, it's like when Mom went for resentencing, the judge continued to give her the same amount of time and added on 2 years to her probation.
Okay, so that's what I heard. I heard you mention, I saw it on your I think the podcast that you mentioned he added more probation.
Yeah, it was a woman.
What was the reason for adding the probation?
Well, now the prosecutors are saying that, that was just a mistake. So, of course, when the government does something wrong, it's a mistake. But if we did something wrong, it'd be intentional. They said it was a mistake.
So they weren't supposed to add the extra.
That's what now the prosecutors are saying, because we filed the appeal on that and said that her sentence was retaliatory based off of all the crap that I've been saying. Yeah. Because she said in the courtroom, you need to be more concerned with the well-being of these children than you are spreading false information for podcast and TV ratings.
Yeah, I heard that you got a warden that's not too happy with you too, right?
I got a lot of people that aren't too happy with me. No, she's not real happy with me. She apparently I was in the People magazine like a week ago, and she apparently took it in her meeting and said, "This is what white privilege is," and like ripped it up. Yeah, she's not happy at all.
But has your mom, well, I'll speak about what I think from the time that I was there. Has she experienced that too, or in a different way, more subtle?
So she has experienced in a more subtle way of like, I know when she had first got there, she called me and was like distraught because one of the COs had locked her in the cafeteria. And Noni, I think, she was like, oh, the hell with him. She was like, because she was with her. Because I think mom was waiting to get food. Noni, I think, was in the medical line.
Okay.
And so mom like didn't want them to put the food up before she was able to get her food. So mom waited. And then I guess they got pissed off, the CO did, and literally locked her in the cafeteria, her and Noni. And it was that old guy that's just
the one that I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, locked her in the cafeteria. And luckily that girl was there because mom had just gotten there, So, I mean, she would have found her way out, but like just stuff like that. But then they, just with her emails, they screw with those that like we get them every few weeks. Like they're not coming directly to us. And then within her mail, they're messing with that too because someone that works there had come to her and notified her of a situation that had occurred. And so it's just like small stuff like that.
Okay.
Dad's is more like in your face, deliberate raids,
Right.
Trying to, I mean, they literally yesterday went in and took his underwear, all of his underwear, all of his food from commissary because he doesn't eat from that chow hall. He eats his commissary.
Right.
Like, that's all he eats. And the warden allegedly said, we're going to make a believer out of him. Let's see how long he goes. Well, clearly I could talk to you forever. So we're going to split this episode into two so that y'all can hear all the hilarious, fun stories and hear a part of your book, one of the letters. And just make sure you guys stay tuned, and you can go and pre-order her book now, and it will be out in April. So until next week, have a good one.